Hi guys, it's Mishel with Deception Bytes, and I'm back again. I fixed the problem with my computer, so I'm going to continue on with the Q Anon Posts, and I'm going to some of those that I wasn't able to get to because it wasn't pulling up the links for me. I'm going to kind of start with that and just kind of go back and tie up some of the loose ends from what we didn't cover in the last video. So I'm going to do that first, and I'm going to go to some of these news articles that I had because I think they're important. And we just hope that my computer will now cooperate, and it is. Yay! Close some of this stuff. Okay. Now, I found this on this website, Co-Creating Our New Earth. I'm not into all that, but I found this very interesting, and I thought it was really, really well done, and it just kind of encapsulates everything for us. So I think it's important. This person, Joanne Moretti, says, last night I was on radio discussing Las Vegas shooting and the connection to what is happening in Saudi Arabia. They are connected. I'll start at the beginning. And of course, we know that they are connected, and this is just kind of tying up some loose ends before we go on. There was a King Faisal who had a son, Prince Al-Walid bin Talal. We know that name, of course. He's the one that has shares in Facebook, shares in News Corp, we're the second largest investor in News Corp that owns most of our news and communication. King Faisal took ill and named his brother Salman as king in his place. King Salman has named his son an heir to the throne instead of his brother's son, Prince Al-Walid. Al-Walid is a Wahhabi. Salman is Sunni. Wahhabi is extreme Islam. Salman wanted a more modern, non-extreme Islam for Saudi. That's why he named his own son heir. In Las Vegas, Prince Al-Walid owned the upper floors of the Mandalay Bay Resort, including the 32nd floor. That was one of the points of shooting at the Strip. I say one of the places because the witnesses were all correct. There were other locations too. The Mandalay Bay has a helipad on the roof. That is important because that was the escape route after the carnage. Paddock was a pilot. He was also a gun runner between the Philippines and the U.S. He was running guns for Prince Al-Walid. He didn't win at the casino. Those millions came from smuggling. I think we all pretty much suspected that. Casinos are not set up to lose. And, anyone that is making millions off smuggling, I just don't or off of casinos, I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. They're just not set up that way. You may win once, but you'll lose the next time. And you'll lose more than you win. Paddock was a pilot. He was also a gun runner between the Philippines and the U.S. He was running guns for Prince Al-Walid. He didn't win at the casino. Those millions came from smuggling. On the night of the attack, I found out that King Salman was in Las Vegas. I didn't know that part until after the show, and I received a missing piece of info. Salman was at the Tropicana. Paddock was victim 1. I've always suspected that, personally, that they killed him before they did anything. But, again, I have no proof of that. Others were used to shoot at the country music venue. This was to create chaos and distract from the real target over at the Tropicana. Al-Walid's assassins shot from Mandalay Bay, but they were also at the Tropicana trying to kill Salman. That explains why there were shooters on the ground as well as in the air. Remember the videos of the helicopter flyover. I asked why a helicopter would be there when there was a shooter high up. It wasn't news or cops. It was the assassins who ran up the stairs to the roof from the 32nd floor. Remember, they sealed the door to the stairwell. Paddock had access to the service elevator because the boss said he could use the elevator. Nobody questioned him. Meanwhile, the assassination attempt on Salman failed. Now we are seeing the result of the failed attempt. It was not only an assassination attempt and a terror attack, but an attempted coup in Saudi. That is why everyone shut up in Las Vegas. The response is still ongoing. You are watching it play out. As I said, I spoke on the air about this. I will post links in the comments to prove my story. Las Vegas was definitely a terror attack. Al-Walid, the owner of the suite, who was behind all of it. All of the witnesses cite multiple shooters, all told the truth. All the witnesses citing multiple shooters all told the truth. There were shootouts along the Strip and in Mandalay Bay and Tropicana hotels. The reason nobody is talking is it's not over yet. There is a perfect helipad at the top of Mandalay, right at the hub. So I did this because I went to this because it's in line with everything that Q has stated. So whether it has merit, I don't know. It says credit to Joanne Moretti, Proof Negative Radio Show, Real Patriot News, 11/6/17. And it has the listing for the radio program that she was on here. So it's under, if you're looking for this, it's on a blog called Co-Creating Our New Earth, and the subtitle is, Was Las Vegas a Saudi Crown Prince Salman Assassination Attempt? Interesting stuff. So I'm going to go on here. That's one thing that I wanted to draw your attention to. And I think all of this we finished. We talked about Halliburton last time and how it profited from the Iraq War, which I think most of us knew already. And the other thing we touched on in the last video that I wasn't able to go out to the website and show was that there's billions of dollars unaccounted for from the Iraq War. So I just want to go out there and hopefully it'll keep cooperating with us, and here we go. Yeah. How the U.S. lost billions over 9 years in Iraq. Since the start of the Iraq War, the United States has sent tens of billions of dollars in assistance to Iraq, a large portion of which has been squandered or simply disappeared. Government auditors say some $61 billion was spent on reconstruction projects in Iraq from 2003 to 2012. At least 10% of the money cannot be accounted for. Some 15% of the money spent, or roughly $8 billion, was wasted. The audit also found that much of the money spent in Iraq was ineffective. Many development projects are still unfinished, and the futility of the money spent on training Iraqi troops has been on full display during the recent ISIS advance. American money began to disappear almost as soon as the Iraq War began. In 2004, $19 billion in reconstruction assistance was provided to Iraq. From 2005 to 2009, $26 billion was sent to Iraq for the same purpose. A Congressional Research Service, CRS, report published in 2009 said much of this money was lost to waste, fraud, and abuse. Stuart W. Bowden Jr., then Special Inspector General for Iraq Reconstruction, testified to Congress in 2009 that 15 to 20% of this money was wasted. So I don't think I need to go through all this, just to show you that there was a lot of wastage, and there was a lot of money that just simply went missing. I think we're all aware that money was mishandled in Iraq, but I wasn't aware that that much money went unaccounted for. So let's see what else we missed here from the last one, with me not being able to get out to the internet. Secret Saudi 9/11 files finally revealed. Turns out there are 29 pages, not 28. The 9/11 Commission's look into the link between Saudi officials and the Al-Qaeda hijackers is finally here, and there are a number of tantalizing new leads. 13 years after the publication of a joint congressional inquiry into the 9/11 attacks, 29 pages on possible ties between the hijackers and Saudi officials were finally released to the public on Friday. Close watchers of the possible Saudi 9/11 connections will find few surprises, and the page will settle no controversies. But they did provide all sorts of tantalizing and inconclusive hints at links between the infamous Al-Qaeda terrorists and their supporters in the Saudi government, the very government that the terrorist group had vowed to destroy. For instance, there's the discovery of a CIA memorandum that discussed alleged financial connections between the September 11th hijackers, Saudi government officials, and members of the Saudi royal family. The memo was drafted by a CIA officer whose name is blacked out, relying primarily on information from FBI files. The officer sent the memo to the CIA Counterterrorism Center and provided a copy to the FBI agent, but the memo was apparently never sent to FBI headquarters. Imagine that. That's one of few new revelations. Much of the content of perhaps the most famous classified documents in U.S. history were already known, thanks to a steady drip of leaks by those who had already read them and the advocacy of Senator Bob Graham, who chaired the inquiry and has been pressing for the pages release for years. News accounts have always stated that there were 28 pages in total, but it turns out there are 29. Graham has said that the Bush and Obama administrations had for years been withholding vital information about the attacks from the American public. U.S. officials had given no explicit reason why the pages should be withheld and appeared to do so only recently because of a renewed press interest in the pages' findings. But scanning through the 29 pages, one is immediately struck by the abundance of words like speculate and allegations and may have provided support. Had the pages been released in their entirety, the congressional inquiry might very well have been accused of inciting a mob, publishing unproven and in some cases uninvestigated allegations about specific individuals and their connection to the mass murder of 3,000 people. The joint inquiry itself acknowledged in the 29 pages that it's not investigated the leads it wanted to publish, which came largely from information collected by the FBI early in the 9/11 investigation. It was not the task of this joint inquiry to conduct the kind of extensive investigations that would be required to this. I hate it when news sites have bad grammar, but anyway, the true significance of any alleged connections to the Saudi government. The pages state, noting that some of the suspected links could turn out to be completely innocent. So that's there, and there's more here, but that's mainly it. That, there were some alleged ties to the Saudi family and Saudi financing, which I don't think really surprises any of us. Certainly doesn't surprise me. And there's something else. Excuse me for a moment while I take a drink. Okay, Saudi Arabia government. Now this is interesting. Saudi Arabia government funded dry run for 9/11 legal documents claim. The Saudi Arabian embassy in Washington, D.C. may have funded a, quote, dry run of the 9/11 attacks, according to evidence submitted to an ongoing lawsuit against the Saudi government. As reported by the New York Post, the embassy might have used 2 of its employees for the so-called dry run before a dozen hijackers flew 2 planes into the Twin Towers, killing nearly 3,000 people in 2001. The complaint filed on behalf of 1,400 family members of the victims stated that the Saudi government paid 2 nationals posing as students in the U.S. to take a flight from Phoenix to Washington and test out our flight deck security before 9/11. Sean Carter, lead lawyer for the plaintiff, said, "We've long asserted that there were long-standing and close relationships between Al-Qaeda and the religious components of the Saudi government. The Saudi government has long denied any links to the terrorists, and lawyers representing the government have filed motions to dismiss the claims. The plaintiffs must respond to the motion by November. The case can then go to trial, thanks to the Justice Against Sponsors of Terrorism Act, which was voted into law by Congress last September despite a veto from former President Barack Obama and lobbying from the Saudi government. The law allows survivors and relatives of victims to sue foreign governments in the U.S. federal courts. According to the documents, and as reported by the New York Post, the class action lawsuit argued that a pattern of both financial and operational support from the Saudi government helped the hijackers in the months before the attack. FBI documents submitted as evidence claimed that the two Saudi nationals who came to the U.S., Mohammed al-Qadin and Hamdan al-Shalawi, were in fact members of the kingdom's network of agents in the country. The documents claimed the men trained in Afghanistan with a number of other Al-Qaeda operatives that participated in the attacks. Qahadin, I'm not sure, was allegedly employed at the Saudi Arabia Ministry of Islamic Affairs, and Shalawi was a longtime employee of the Saudi government in Washington, D.C. In November 1999, they boarded an American West flight to Washington and tried to access the cockpit several times, asking the flight attendants technical questions and making the staff suspicious. Reportedly asked staff where the bathroom was and was pointed in the right direction. Instead, he tried to enter the cockpit. The pilots made an emergency landing in Ohio, and the two men were released after initial interrogation from the FBI. Their plane tickets were reportedly paid for by the Saudi embassy, according to Kristen Breitweiser, whose husband was killed in 9/11. The two men also reportedly attended a symposium in Washington organized by the Saudi Embassy in association with the Institute for Islamic and Arabic Sciences in America, which employed late Al-Qaeda cleric Anwar al-Awlaki as a lecturer. He later helped the hijackers to get housing and ID when they arrived in early 2000. The Post reported that the Saudi nationals lived in Arizona and had frequent communication with Saudi officials. Mr. Carter said the allegations in the class action lawsuit were based on almost 5,000 pages of evidence. A total of 15 of the 19 hijackers were Saudi. Hundreds of thousands of U.S. documents regarding Saudi Arabia remain secret. So I felt that was pretty important because I had not heard that before. You perhaps have. I had not. So let's go up here, because I think that there is, there's some other, this is the one that I wanted to link to, showing that Giuliani rejected the $10 million from Saudi Prince Al-Walid bin Talal. New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani said Thursday the city would not accept a $10 million donation for disaster relief from Saudi Prince Al-Walid bin Talal after the prince suggested U.S. policies in the Middle East contributed to the September 11th attacks. I entirely reject that statement, Giuliani said. There is no moral equivalent for this terrorist act. There is no justification for it. The people who did it lost any right to ask for justification for it when they slaughtered 4,000 or 5,000 innocent people. Prince Al-Walid gave the mayor a check after a Thursday morning memorial service at Ground Zero, the site of the World Trade Center towers destroyed in the attacks. The prince offered his condolences to the people of New York, but after the ceremony he released a statement suggesting the United States must address some of the issues that led to such a criminal attack. The check has not been deposited. The Twin Towers Fund has not accepted it, Giuliani said in a statement late Thursday. The prince's statement said the United States should re-examine its policies in the Middle East and adopt more balanced stand toward the Palestinian cause. While the UN passed clear resolutions number 242 and 338 calling for the Israeli withdrawal from the West Bank and Gaza Strip decades ago, our Palestinian brethren continue to be slaughtered at the hands of Israelis while the world turns the other cheek, the statement said. Giuliani flatly rejected the prince's position to suggest that there's justification for the terrorist attacks only invites this happening in the future, he said. It is highly responsible and very, very dangerous. And one of the reasons I think this happened is because people were engaged in moral equivalency in not understanding the difference between liberal democracies like the United States, like Israel, and terrorist states, and those who condone terrorism. So I think Not only are those statements wrong, they're part of the problem, Giuliani said. Now, I say more power to him because I think that's awesome. So, let's go back. We're still just kind of catching up with what I couldn't go over in the last article because my internet was not connecting for some reason. Okay. Now, this one of the questions Q had asked in the last one that we did was, the connections between the Saudis and the Bushes. Well, there's very clear connections there. In this article, it asks, did the Saudis buy a president? How much money has flowed from the House of Saud to the Bush family and its friends and allies over the year? No one will ever know, but the number is at least $1.477 billion. Billion. That's a lot of money. If the Saudis had been happy with the presidency of George H.W. Bush, and they must have been truly ecstatic in the summer of 2000 that his son was the Republican candidate for president. Indeed, the relationship between the two dynasties had come a long way since the 70s when Saudi banking billionaire Khalid bin Mahfouz and Salim bin Laden had flown halfway around the world. I hate that. I really hate it. Okay, had flown halfway around the world to Texas to see James Bath, George W. Bush's old friend from decades before. Even bin Mahfouz, subsequent financing of the Houston skyscraper for James Baker's family bank, or the Saudi bailout of Harken Energy that helped George W. Bush make his fortune, were small potatoes compared with what had happened since. The Bushes and their allies controlled, influenced, or possessed substantial positions in a vast array of companies that dominated the energy and defense sectors. Put it all together, and there were myriad ways for the House of Bush to engage in lucrative business deals with the House of Saud and the Saudi merchant elite. The Saudis could give donations to Bush-related charities. They could invest in the Carlyle Group's funds or contract with one of the many companies owned by Carlyle in the defense sector or other industries. People tied to Carlyle as partners, advisors, counselors, or directors of its companies have included the most powerful people in the world: former President George H.W. Bush, former Secretary of State James Baker, former British Prime Minister John Major, former Secretary of Defense Frank Carlucci, and former head of the Office of Management and Budget Richard Darman. So, I don't think that it's necessary that I read all of this. I just wanted you to get the idea, but it is on the website salon.com, and it's called Did the Saudis Buy a President? I would say that yes, they did. Okay, now we've gone over that and that and that, and okay, that's just about the book that Obama was reading, The Post-American World. I don't really think that that's anything to get too worked up about. So, I thought I had a really interesting link here. Okay, I don't know. I guess not. Okay, let's go on. I'm sure you don't want to hear me talk to myself all night. Here we go. Up to the next one, and then we'll leave it there for today. Okay. Oh, okay. Link to Bin Laden facts. It's up further. All right. Good. That's what I was looking for. Okay. What family was permitted to leave? And this is November 6th at 4:50 p.m. From Q. What family was permitted to leave immediately after 9/11? Well, that was Bin Laden's family. There was only one plane authorized to leave during that mandatory forced grounding, and I remember that mandatory forced grounding very, very well because I was babysitting for friends of mine that were literally about to get on their plane when this, word came down and they were stuck where they were. So, and there was no one authorized at that time. I mean, every single plane in America was grounded, every single one. And the ones that were up in the air, I know, were forced to land. There were some that were forced to land in Gander, Newfoundland, which there's a very interesting story about that. Anyway, I won't get into that. That is a rabbit trail. But who authorized this departure? So there was only one plane authorized during that forced grounding, and it was bin Laden's family. Now, who authorized that departure? Well, it was George Bush Jr. Why is this relevant? Because it shows that bin Laden was a CIA operative, and obviously his family was important to our government if they figured they were important enough to get out of the country. That's a little odd to me, that this is at a time where they're not even sure who did this. Now, of course, we all know about 9/11, but they're not even sure who did this, and yet they're getting bin Laden's family out. Why is that? It's interesting. George Bush authorized the departure. I think it shows that bin Laden was a CIA operative. I've heard that for a very long time. And the very fact that our government was protecting his family, there's something to that. Was anyone else permitted to leave? No one was. And he said, repeat, was anyone else permitted to leave? No. Was it a private plane? Well, yes, it was. And we go over here and we see that the plane was a 727 owned by DB Air and operated by Ryan International, began its flight in Los Angeles and made stops in Orlando, Dulles International Airport, and Boston before continuing to Gander, Newfoundland, Paris, Geneva, and Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. The aircraft tail number N521DB has been chartered frequently by the White House for the press corps traveling with President Bush. So that plane was authorized to leave. No other plane in America was. And it was bin Laden's family being spirited out of the country to safety. Sorry, I had to take a drink. Now, the next question is, what was carried on a What was carried on a private plane to Iran? I don't know the answer to this. I've looked. I don't know. If anyone knows the answer to this, I mean, I could insert an answer in there that I think would probably work, but, I'd like the real answer. If anyone knows, put it in the comments below. I've got, wonderful listeners on this channel. Like, really, they leave very good comments, and they're very kind. But if anyone is listening that knows the answer to that, please leave a comment. So, why was bin Laden's family here during 9/11? Well, that's a good question, isn't it? It's a very good question. I'm not sure we have the answer to that. But Q asks, coincidence? Well, no. And if you'll remember, Q keeps telling us that there are no coincidences, that everything matters, everything's connected. So, no, I don't think it's a coincidence. How does Saudi Arabia connect to the bin Laden family? Well, actually, bin Laden family had one of the biggest building companies. I think the biggest building company in Saudi Arabia. They were very, very well off. That's where bin Laden was born. And obviously his brother was still there because he was one of the ones that were arrested during the Saudi purge. So I believe that there's members of his family still there. Or maybe it was just his brother living there. I don't know. But they definitely have very close ties. Now, let me go to this because I think this is an important one. Yeah, this is kind of interesting. Osama bin Laden, fast facts. Okay, here's a look at Osama bin Laden, the former leader of Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda, who was killed in 2011. See, I got all off track by these kittens over here. It's awful. I'm going to turn into a cat lady. Personal. His birthday is 1957. Sources vary, either March 10th or July 30th. I don't think we care. We're not going to be sending him any birthday gifts. And I think that he is dead, but do I believe he was dumped in the ocean? Not for a minute. Death date, May 2nd, 2011. Birthplace, I wish I need to find out what the actual pronunciation of that is. Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. It's the same place where they arrested everyone and they kept them at the hotel, and they kicked out the guests. That's in the same place. That's where he was born. Birth name, Osama bin Muhammad bin Awad bin Laden. Say that 10 times fast. His father was Muhammad Awad bin Laden and construction company executive. His mother is Hamida Al-Attas. And marriages and children, I'm not going through that because who the heck cares? But he's been married and divorced several times and has lots of babies. Education, King Abdul Aziz University in Jeddah, Engineering, 1979. So he does have a university education, or did have. I do believe he is dead. Religions, he was a Sunni Muslim. Other facts, bin Laden was the 17th of 52 children of construction magnate Muhammad Awad bin Laden, an immigrant from neighboring Yemen who ran the construction company, the Saudi bin Laden Group. Muhammad Awad bin Laden became a billionaire by building his company into the biggest construction firm in the Saudi kingdom. Bin Laden married for the first time at age 17 to a Syrian cousin, Najwa. Reportedly walked with a cane and suffered from kidney disease. 1979, travels to Afghanistan to join the Jihad, holy war against the Soviet Union. He remains there for a decade, using construction equipment from his family's business to help the Muslim guerrilla forces build shelters, tunnels, and roads through the rugged Afghan mountains, and at times taking part in battle. 1988, bin Laden founds Al-Qaeda, a militant group with a core goal of waging global jihad. Now, I believe that should be Al-Qaeda, as many do, but that's just me. 1989, the Soviet Union withdraws from Afghanistan. Bin Laden returns to Saudi Arabia to work for the family construction firm, the Saudi bin Laden Group. August 7th, 1990, following the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, U.S. troops arrive in Saudi Arabia. Bin Laden is reportedly outraged at their presence and soon begins to target the United States for its presence on Saudi soil near the Muslim holy sites of Mecca and Medina. 1991, bin Laden is expelled by the Saudi regime. Eventually, he and his followers relocate to Sudan, taking assets that had grown to an estimated $250 million, according to some officials. Other estimates estimate a much lower value. Now, I have a problem with all this because it's going through all this, but, it's obviously not telling us what we already know, and that is his connection to the United States. Because he certainly has one. February 26, 1993, a bomb explodes at the World Trade Center in New York, killing 6, wounding hundreds. 6 Muslim radicals who U.S. officials suspect have links to bin Laden are eventually convicted for the bombing. Although bin Laden is named as a possible unindicted co-conspirator, investigators do not recover conclusive evidence that the Al-Qaeda leader orchestrated the attack. And 1993, 18 U.S. servicemen who are part of a humanitarian mission to Somalia die in an ambush perpetrated by militants who reportedly trained with Al-Qaeda. The Saudi government officially strips bin Laden of his citizenship, freezing all remaining assets he has in the country. That was 1994. His family disowns him. 1996, Sudan expels bin Laden. 1997, in his first interview with Western media, bin Laden tells Peter Bergen that the United States is unjust, criminal, and tyrannical. He says the U.S. today, as a result of the arrogant atmosphere, has set a double standard, calling whoever goes against its injustice, a terrorist. It wants to occupy our country, steal our resources, impose on us agents to rule us. Bin Laden also told Bergen that Arab holy warriors trained in Afghanistan banded with Somali Muslims in 1993 to kill 18 U.S. soldiers in Somalia, he said. The U.S. today has set a double standard, calling whoever goes against its injustice a terrorist. It wants to occupy our country, steal our resources, impose agents on us to rule us, and then wants us to agree to all this. If we refuse to do so, it says we are terrorists. He does have a point. February 1997, according to court documents, bin Laden orders the militarization of the East African cell of Al-Qaeda, a move that culminates in the bombings of the U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania. Tanzania. 1998, 8 years to the day after U.S. troops landed in the Saudi kingdom. Bin Laden's Al-Qaeda and Egyptian Islamic Jihad under Ayman merge. Let's get up here to 2001. Four of bin Laden's alleged supporters are convicted in the 1998 bombing of the U.S. embassies in Africa. Following the September 11th attacks in the U.S., the U.S. government names bin Laden as a prime suspect. Funny how they knew that so fast. Now, December 25th, 2001, the Pakistan Observer publishes details of bin Laden's alleged funeral. On the front page, the newspaper reports that an unnamed Taliban leader said bin Laden had a peaceful natural death in mid-December in the vicinity of the Tora Bora Mountains. The report says that his death was a result of a serious lung complication. He was laid to rest honorably in his last abode, in a grave prepared according to the beliefs of the fundamentalist Wahhabi sect of Islam to which the Al-Qaeda leader belongs, the report said. Now, that's interesting because they're saying that he died in December 25th, 2001. That's the Pakistan Observer. December 27th, Afghan officials report that bin Laden is in Pakistan with Al-Qaeda sympathizers. So I don't know about all that. I heard that as well, that he was dead. But I do believe that he was dead before they said he died. That's just me. You guys might have a completely different take on this. And if so, I really want to hear it. It takes all of us looking at this stuff. Like, no one person has the answer. That's why it's important to kind of like all listen to one another and see what people are saying in the comments and so forth, because there's some very smart people that have commented. So, okay, I don't know if I need to go on with this. I thought it might be a little bit more of his connections with things, but I don't necessarily believe this report of timelines and things. When it comes to bin Laden, there's just a lot of unanswered questions. Okay. So, bin Laden's father was a billionaire, top Saudi building company. Bin Laden's brother was arrested in Saudi Arabia. And it says, what did they deliver? And I'm not sure what Q is getting at here, because up here he's talking about bin Laden. So is the answer that they delivered bin Laden's brother because he was arrested? And to who? To who was he delivered? And why? What does money buy? Why are the events in Saudi Arabia relevant to the above? Well, it's all connected somehow to bin Laden, because up here he's talking about that's the only plane that was allowed to leave, and then down here he's talking about the bin Laden family here during 9/11, and then he's saying how does Saudi Arabia connect to the bin Laden family? Well, in many ways it does, and his brother was obviously still there and still operating within this, in Saudi Arabia, because he was one of the ones arrested. So if that could be the answer that Q is looking for, what did they deliver? Bin Laden's brother. To who? To the Saudis, to the Prince MBS, Mohammed bin Salim, is it? And that could be that could be what they're looking for, and it might not be. So if anybody else has any different ideas, just let us know. What does money buy? Well, we all know what money buys. It buys pretty much everything. Why are the events in Saudi Arabia relevant to the above? Well, I don't know, but Q is telling us that they are relevant. Who is the financial backer for human trafficking? Well, Saudi Arabia, like, no doubt. They are like the big kahuna in the world of human trafficking. Who is the broker for underage sex? Now, the first thing that occurred to me when I saw this question would be like Jeffrey Epstein, but I don't think that that's what he's looking for, because he says, think Saudi Arabia. So I don't know. How does Facebook and Instagram play a role in capture? Well, I think that they're staked out on Facebook and Instagram. I really do. And he says, think of the movie Taken. Well, Taken is about a girl that is literally taken for human trafficking. So that's definitely what they're talking about. Facebook and Instagram, the only way that that could play a role in capture is perhaps staking out victims, or tricking them. I don't know. But it's pretty easy on Facebook. Somebody can say, like, I've had so many people that had fake profiles, and they were obviously fake, trying to get on my Facebook. So it's pretty easy to make a fake Facebook and pretend that you're whoever, and the person goes to meet you, and then they disappear, and there's really no record of it. So anyway, I think that that's what he's talking about here. And then he says, fantasy, right? Well, no, it isn't fantasy. It's happening all the time, and we know it's happening. Why do select senior political officials have foundations, institute? Well, it's to launder money. That's why they have them. And we know that that's what Q is thinking, because he asks us below, what is money laundering? Well, money laundering is the process of transforming the profits of crime and corruption into ostensibly legitimate assets. What does money buy? Well, money buys a lot. It buys weapons, it buys silence, it buys loyalty, it buys sex, it buys, slaves, it buys whatever nasty thing you want it to buy. It's not the money that's evil, it's the love of money that's evil. A lot of people think, they always say to me, well, it's like the Bible says, money is the root of all evil. No, the Bible does not say that. The Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. Money is just a tool. You can do with it what you want. It can be used for good. It can be used for evil. It's like the same, rain that grows corn drowns rats. So there you go. Why is this relevant? I don't know. What other people were arrested in Saudi Arabia? Well, there was a lot of people arrested in Saudi Arabia, so obviously he's leading us towards something. Q is wanting us to find something, and he says, what are their backgrounds? Well, I don't know. There were a lot of people arrested, and I don't have the names of everybody, and even if I did, I wouldn't know who they were, what they were connected to. But then he asks us a question that we can see where Q is getting at. He says, are any connected to the Podesta group? Well, curiously enough, there are some connected to the Podesta group. Why is this relevant? Well, I think it's very relevant considering what we know about Podesta. And I think I have this here. I yawned. That's so rude. Forgive me. It is getting late though. It's 11:55 here. Okay. Saudi Arabia's fleet of lobbyists and consultants include the Podesta Group and other powerhouse firms. So that's interesting, isn't it? Through communicators and experts, took President Trump's trip to Saudi Arabia as an opportunity to spotlight the country's poor record on human rights. 28 lobbying and consulting firms currently represent its interest in the United States. According to the Department of Justice Foreign Agents Registration Act database, powerful firms including the Podesta Group, which was co-founded by Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign chairman, John Podesta, who no longer works at the firm, and a host of additional companies with powerful ties to the political establishment on both sides of the aisle, are registered as active foreign principals on behalf of Saudi Arabia. On December 23rd, the Podesta Group disclosed its contract with the Center for Studies and Media Affairs at the Saudi Royal Court, an arm of the country's government. The firm, currently run by John Podesta's brother Tony, a major Clinton donor, is set to earn $140,000 a month for performing public relations services on behalf of the center through December 31st, 2017. The center also entered into a contract with BGR Government Affairs, part of the BGR Group, founded by former Mississippi Governor Haley Barbour, a high-profile Republican, in August 2015. Similarly, BGR's agreement involved performing public relations and media management services for an annual fee of $500,000. That contract was signed by Ed Rogers, a member of the Council on Foreign Relations who served in influential roles in the Reagan White House and donates regular to GOP candidates, according to Federal Elections Commission's report. Squire Patton Boggs disclosed a contract spanning September 2016 through September 2017 to perform, quote, legal and strategic policy advice and advocacy on foreign policy for $100,000 a month on behalf of the center as well. $100,000 a month. A month. Wow. In the contract, partner Edward J. Newberry, a regular political donor, specified, "I will lead the day-to-day efforts on behalf of our team, which will include former Majority Leader Trent Lott, former Senator John Breaux, Jack Deshar, and other professionals as needed from time to time." Just this March, Hogan Lovel signed a contract with Saudi Arabia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, extending an agreement from 2007 to the 2017 calendar year for a $125,000 monthly retainer. The firm was set to provide, quote, legal counsel to the foreign principal in connection with litigation support and general foreign policy and related matters, along with, quote, advice on legal, legislative, regulatory, and public policy activities of interest. Clearly, powerful politicians need not travel out of Washington to experience the influence of the Saudi government. So, there's that. Then, Q asks, what do you need in order to prosecute senior political officials? It seems to me that somebody replied on one of these videos and said what would be necessary, but now I can't remember. I'm trying to remember and I can't. How do you avoid public misconception? If somebody knows the answer to this, what they need in order to prosecute senior political officials, please put it in the comments below. Hopefully this time I'll remember. How do you avoid public misconception? I don't know. I really don't know. How do you justify counter-political attacks to the mass public? I don't know. I mean, Q is actually doing that by what he's doing. I mean, he's basically justifying the counter-political attacks. Is it going to the mass public? Probably not, but it's going to, at least it's getting out there. I'm not sure what he's looking for here. If you have a different take on it, please comment below, but I'm really not sure where he's getting at here. Why is information so vital? Well, of course, information is power, so of course, information is vital. Is the country divided? Yeah, somewhat. I think that it's no more divided than the mainstream media likes us to believe. I think that they're always putting that out there, how divided we are and how different we are. And I don't really think we're that divided, but I do believe we are somewhat divided. Why does the mainstream media portray the country as being divided? Because it suits their narrative. It suits their narrative. Why is this relevant? Again, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what he's wanting to get at here. So my clock is going to go off and bong any minute now, so I'm going to end this, and I hope you have a good evening. I'll be back tomorrow with another one, and thank you for listening. I appreciate it.